No, we good. We good.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
That's all right. That's all right. All right.
So I can bear with us. Hey, multiple brothers recording. It's all good.
All right, Shalom. We are the Hebrew Israelites from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone. Here to give all praises, glory, and honor to
Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash.
Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching us this 100% truth. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners, and you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, we say Shalom.
Shalom.
All right. Before we get into it, just want to declare fair use, according to the Copyright Act of 1976, as stipulated under Section 107. There is no monetary gain from this video. It's strictly for the purpose of teaching and educating. All right. We have, this is our camps installment of For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob. And what we're dealing with today is the Queen City, as it was called, in summary, where the Pentagon of the United States, as with all other government factions during the history of this series we've been doing, have taken upon themselves to destroy Jake neighborhoods and build what they wanted to build by claiming eminent domain, and just, moving Jake out and not giving them payment. Proper payment for the land that they took from them, and do what they want to do with it. So, all right. And this article from today is from the City Cast DC. All right, it goes into interesting history of Washington DC that a lot of people didn't know about, and we will put a link to this article in the description box of the video. All right, so we'll start out. It says City Cast DC.
Real quick, open the scripture.
Oh, yeah. The opening scriptures. I like it. It's Obadiah 1 and 10. That's the focus for thy violence against thy brother Jacob.
Yes,
we don't want to forget that.
Yep.
All right.
That's Obadiah verse 10. It says, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee.
Oh, so you said Obadiah verse 10. Okay, yeah. It's only one chapter.
Okay,
don't worry about it.
Shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever.
This is talking about the violence of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man against Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel, who are primarily the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and his violence has been perpetual, since the beginning, going all the way back to Cain, if you really want to talk about it. But, that's another lesson within itself. All right, and it's saying that his shame is going to cover him. Right now, in these times, all of his terrible history is being discovered and revealed. Now, you got the Northern Kingdom. Come fast forward to today, they're starting to figure out who their real enemy is. We've been telling them. Some of the Northern Kingdom is part of the elect, along with the prophets out here on the highways and byways, week in and week out, know this. But the majority of the Northern Kingdom and Southern Kingdom don't know this. And particularly 2/3 of our people don't understand what the hell is going on. All right. It says his shame is going to cover him, and that's the shame of Esau, Edom. And he hates it. That he can't get away from it. But no, this is what's supposed to happen. You're going to have everything declared unto you, as the scriptures say in Deuteronomy 33:29. You're going to be found to be liars. Okay, Esau, Edom, going all the way up to Amalek and down to the rest of Edom. All right, and then it says you're going to be cut off forever. So yeah, once we take over, being those immortal, incorruptible bodies, you're going into slavery twice as long and twice as hard as we did, but in righteousness. Okay, and after that time period is up, you will be done away with forever. Just like you have intentions on exterminating Jake, the Bible says you will be exterminated.
All right. Precept. This is just to back up for that statement you just made. This is Sirach chapter 10 verse 8. It says, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another.
God, and go ahead and break it down, bro.
Yup. Hey, and oh, sorry. I'm charging my phone. Esau is ultimately gonna, lose all of his gain, that he has on this side, because what is the scripture saying in the book of St. John, chapter 10, in verse 10? It says, "The thief cometh not, but for to kill, steal, and destroy."
God.
All right, and that's how he's been able to acquire these riches and in his power by through the force of the sword.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which are the true biblical Israelites.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read it from the top again. It says because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. All right, and that's the times that we're in right now, a transitioning of power. Like the Lord is going to remove the power seat from Esau Edom. The power seat from Esau Edom and translate it over to Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning that follows, man.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, all this, all these riches, all this land, it really belongs to the nation of Israel, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the Lord just set up Esau to rule for a certain period of time, so that he can receive his judgment at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's right, brother. Exactly right, man. So his turning of things upside down is going to be esteemed as the potter's clay.
God.
He the wickedness. The scriptures speak about being covetous. And I got this quick scripture real quick. This is Micah 2:1. I know y'all brothers bring this scripture out a lot because y'all talk about a lot of theft of land, and this is one of those scriptures that really goes into like the theft of land. But this is Micah 2:1. It says, "Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hands." The court, all this courtship, is called a practice. Whether you're a judge or you're a lawyer, you're practicing. It says, "And they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage." Because if those houses were owned by those men, they would, when the people that own the house, when they died, they would leave their houses to their families. So in this incident of theft, not only did they take away a man's home, but they took away the heritage of his family. Because our people have to work extra hard to own these homes. They have to work 10 times, 15 times harder than the so-called white man to get these homes in the first place. And then because of land development, you say, oh, we need to develop land over here. Well, these N-words, these niggas live here, So you know what? They're not important. We could just take them. They don't have no ownership. They give you ownership, but then they go to the law and tell you don't really own shit. It says, "And they cover fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house and even a man in his heritage." So not only do you take the man's house and leave him destitute in the streets, but he has, that was a part of his heritage. He don't have nothing to pass on to his children. A lot of this land and properties that the white man owned today were passed down from their families. They got wealth because they have a heritage. We don't have a heritage. Because every time we own something or we started to take off and do well for ourselves, then you would come in and fuck us up for it. You come in and take our shit. You come in and burn our shit down, bomb our shit. You know. So that's
That
that's all I have to say. Yeah, go ahead.
but this just going what you were just saying, about how they just come in because to them we mean nothing. This is the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 11, and it reads, "Let our strength be the law of justice, but that which is feeble is found to be nothing worth." And who are they calling feeble? Jake. Okay, we don't mean anything. It says let their strength be the law of justice. It happens in their laws, the actual laws that they create, and their military that they use to enforce those laws. Okay, just come in and claim eminent domain and take the land from you and give you nothing for it.
Yeah.
And it will kill you in the process.
Yeah.
We did this time last year about those so-called black communities that were flooded over. You got some people and buildings still down there, underwater.
Yeah.
But that's just what Esau did. All right.
Precept. Okay. This is Proverbs chapter 23, beginning in verse 10. It says, "Remove not the old landmark and enter not into the fields of the fatherless." You see, so ultimately we understand Esau, even the so-called white man, he is completely opposed to Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. You see, so anything the scriptures tell us not to do, guess what? Esau, even the so-called white man, just goes ahead and does it anyway, because he's a natural opposition against Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. You see, so him going to Queen City and pushing Jake out and then taking that land for himself, guess what? He's guilty of removing a landmark. You see, verse 11. "For their Redeemer is mighty, he shall plead their cause with thee." You see, and who's our Redeemer? Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. You see, so all the cities you push Jake out of, and ultimately, you taking over our land and wickedness, ultimately, there's a judgment that comes with it. You see, and the Lord, he's going to repay you according to your wickedness. That's it.
All right. Into the article, it says Queen City, a historically black neighborhood in Arlington, was wiped off the map in 1942 to make way for the rushed construction of the Pentagon. It was located where current-day Cloverleaf joins Columbia Pike and Washington Boulevard. Okay, and let's look at that right quick. The name of that place means Queen City. Okay, we know the Lord does not deal with queens. You go through the scriptures, it's kings, princes, and priests. That's what he deals with. Okay, there are no queens in Israel. The scriptures tell us that. All right, and then when you look at that word queen in it itself, when you go into the etymology of it, it's also queen, but it's Quean, which means prostitute. Okay, and that's just what Israel did back in the day, were prostituting themselves amongst other gods and idols. Okay, so that within itself is a problem, naming that place after that. And we know that was one of the things in our history, that Queen of Heaven worship that got us in trouble. Okay, so just wanted to make that note on that word queen. All right, this goes back into the article. It says at a community meeting last week, Arlington leaders expressed regret for how Queen City residents were treated, and said the local leaders at the time failed them by not advocating for them. They were not going to. And they said last week, this article was posted on May 21st of this year, 2025, and this happened in 1942. Okay, ridiculous. And it says, the leaders at that time. Well, we know who's primarily in leadership at that time. You didn't have a whole lot of so-called Jake senators and Congress people. Okay, they were not going. Esau is not going to advocate for the positive growth or the flourishing of Jake. They never have, and they never will. Okay, we know that. They have always, as the scriptures say, want to cast down our excellency. All right. It says the community's first inhabitants were descendants of Freedmen's Village, a settlement for freed slaves in the now Arlington Cemetery, who were forced to move out in the 1890s. Okay, it says the community of over 900 people was self-sustaining with its own businesses, churches, a fire department, school, and even a trolley stop.
Yeah, see, and it's important for these lessons like this to come out because these people in these other countries be wondering like, why don't these black people like we go over there, we make it, and we able to thrive and buy big houses. Why ain't these niggas able to buy shit? Because every time we try to establish some type of wealth to where our family would have a heritage, it was destroyed. It was destroyed. It was taken. It was, and that's a form of destroy. If you have something and it's taken from you, you don't have it anymore. So that thing is gone. So our every effort to try to build some wealth for our family, in most instances, have been taken away. We not just been laying up on our fucking backs this whole time. We actually did it, and then like over the years, our people got fucking tired of doing it. Can you imagine building up a whole neighborhood in systemic racism and constant oppression, and you own a home, and you fucking work as a sharecropper, work your ass off to buy a house, right, for your family to live in, and then the next person does it, the next person does it. Now now you got a whole neighborhood being built up, and then this man seeing you building a nice neighborhood. You probably you did all the fucking work, so you know how to build shit.
Yep.
They showed you that in that movie, 12 Years a Slave, when they was building them houses. So our people knew how to build shit. They buy a plot of land. They showed you that in that movie Rosewood. He bought that plot of land. Yep. It was the Sumner, and that was a true story. You buy a plot of land. You got to work 10 times harder than this fucking guy. But you work your ass off, you get it, and then next thing you know, everybody else is working their ass off. They get houses, and next thing you know, it's a whole flourishing neighborhood of people with nice big houses because they built them, And then this other man is looking. Well, his house looked nicer than my house. Well, you taught him how to build shit because you're a lazy fucking bastard, and now he builds a nice house for himself on his land that he purchased. You get a fucking attitude. His house looked nicer than mine. And then these fucking devils will come in with torches or either burn everything down or just take it. So there's some fucking white bitch or some kid, some cracker kid will say, "Oh, this black guy, he winked at me," or this black guy he tried to touch me, and then for the blame of one incident that could be fraudulent, like Rosewood, a fraudulent incident caused the whole fucking neighborhood to be burned down. And they showed you in that movie where they had the mass graves. It was because they was trying to hide the evidence of them, how they massacred our people, man. So like over time, you build shit, they take it. You build shit, they burn it down. You build shit, they bomb it. Over time, you get tired, man. You get tired because you know that the system that is set up is not for you to get ahead.
Precept.
Go ahead, John.
If I can just back out real quick on this, Elder. This is not exclusive to decades past too. I pulled up this article as you were speaking. This is from Black Enterprise. This article is dated December 26, 2023. Gervonta Davis, the boxer. Okay. He says buildings Gervonta Davis purchased to renovate for the Baltimore community caught on fire hours later. This is the block he grew up on. He bought all those buildings, and then later on in the wee hours of the night, it was set on fire. That's the thing they want. Just to your point, they don't want us to have nothing. Anytime we try to develop, they go do this.
And there's a situation with Floyd Mayweather. He supposedly bought a block somewhere in New York, a block of apartment buildings. And I think it's like in a high-end area. That was upwards into the billions that that he could potentially receive, you know, and I think it's been sabotaged also. So I think he's might have lost out money. Places didn't get burnt down, but somewhere I think within the contract it might have been sabotaged. I got to look back, check back up on it. But at one point, they were, you know, he was getting praised for it, and he was kind of showing off about it. The next moment, it was like, oh, it's not as what you may think it is. Yeah.
Just like they did those people in Florida with that, not Florida, but Flint, Michigan, with that water. The guy built the system to take air and turn to clean water. They come and destroyed it, and he said this was a professional job. You know, somebody knew what they were doing to damage the system.
Yeah, and then back to what the elder, one of the points the elder, to build on the point the elder made, is that then you start seeing these athletes, right? You know, because they're being seen all over the world, which is so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Indians mainly, but yet you find that they hardly, you know, another question is why don't they ever go back to the neighborhoods and help those in the neighborhood? Not only is 2/3 of our people are doing things against them, but they're being taught and told not to go back. You know, they're being educated in ways to, you know, not go back into their community to build and help out there.
Yeah, it's in some of their contracts too. Old boy for the Boston Celtics said what he was going to do. Bill Blackwell, top performer in the league, wasn't on the Olympic team, wasn't on the All-Star team. What's his name? Brown, that's his name.
That's what happened to him.
That's
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. Yeah, precept.
Yeah.
This is the book of Psalms, chapter 10 and verse 8. It says, "He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, in the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor."
Yeah.
All right, that, and that's what you see right here in the system, man. All right, Esau pretty much set it up to where, he can prey on the poor, which is Israel. You know, to the point to where to where he can steal from us, okay, kill us. He has Jake set up all in the hoods and in the worst areas here in Babylon, man. All right, they don't fix the roads. The infrastructure is all messed up, man. All right, and Esau, has it set up to where areas like that is a place where he can prey upon Jake. To the point to where Jake can't acquire certain property. Jake can't get a certain type of education. It's all purposely done. So that Esau can continue to be that that predator over our people, man.
And just to make a point and think about how knowledge, the scriptures have said, the knowledge has increased upon the earth. And how has it increased? Through its technology. Back then, they didn't have certain surveillances. So those communities were being built, and then maybe some so-called white man, Edomite, or someone go across the tracks, and it's like, oh, you see what they built, what they got over there, and then they of course they start to plot and set their schemes. Now you have social media. All they got to do is tap into the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and they can see the heartbeat of what's actually going on, and then they can take advantage of it as such, or they can put a stop to it. How people are funneling their money and things like that. So they're actually moving even all the way up to the point that the prophets, the main prophets of the Lord, GMS, has been saying that MOTB, where they're gonna eventually have a full control. But the main, but to go to your point, is that Big Brother has always been watching. How they come up and they're going to rise. They know at some point that these so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians were going to rise up, starting with the elect. So they have to figure out a way to coil and seize, every moment, from whether the economics. Then one biggest thing, we talk about the hip hop. They infiltrate hip hop. You had these segregated civil rights movements. infiltrated, things like that. But this one thing that they can't get a hand on and a grip on is what we're doing for Yahweh Shem Yahushua. So that's it.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a point too. They changed warfare tactics as well. Okay, Jake is all together. Jake is the togetherness that our people had is what drove them to build these communities.
Yep.
And they start pitting Jake like one against this one guy against each other. Oh, let's see. Some Jakes they chose the weaker Jake to put him in a higher position and get money, and then all the other Jakes that were strong subscribed to be weak so they can be like this Jake. Oh, this guy's weak and well, if I do what he do, maybe I can make it like he making it. So they made so they start putting these weak-minded dudes in positions of power or positions to get money, and Jake started seeing it, so they started subscribing to that kind of mindset. Oh, if this is how you got to be to get money, let me put on the act too. But you got over the years, you got your kids looking up to you, acting this way. So your kids are subscribing to it subconsciously, subscribing to that weak-minded mentality that the men had to be subjected to make it in society. So over time, not only did it degrade the togetherness of our people, because everybody started coveting it. Everybody, he think he the shit because he doing good, and then the strong man was the strong-minded man was against the weak-minded man. The weak-minded man was the one that was making it. The strong man's kids would subscribe to these weaker men because they see they making money, and they see, it was just a whole fucked up debacle, man. Not only the season of land, but mindset.
Yep.
And the togetherness of our people was something that they psychologically what's the word? Sabotage.
Yeah.
They psychologically sabotage the minds of our people.
Quick precept, just to back it up. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 26. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor, but the way of the wicked seduceth him.
Man, beautiful scripture. The righteous is more excellent than his neighbor. Who's the righteous? The Israelites. Us. Hey, Shalom, no doubt. Shalom. Yeah, he's more excellent than his neighbor. So this dude deceiving him out of his excellency. Excellency is a mindset first. Excellency is not about what you have. A lot of weak people out here have a lot of things, but their mentality is through. It's finished. It's fried. Because they wanted to become that weak man, that weak-minded man, so they can thrive in society. But now they're thriving in society. They found out it's not worth all the shit they had to give up. It's not worth everything that I gave up to be in this position. And now the position that they're in is failing. The society is failing. So now a lot of these guys are getting caught up because they made money their God, and now money is failing them. Now the system that put them up in those positions is crumbling. And everybody's scrambling now. People are stuck in positions where they don't know what to do. Call out Yahweh Shem Yahushua for this truth. But a lot of these people are stuck in positions that they've had to withhold for so long that they're not gonna make it out.
Right.
I'm this guy. I got money. Everybody know I got money and I'm doing good. So they try to withhold up that facade of a life that, I'm happy because I got money. It's not working for them no more. It's not helping. You said what?
I have one more for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 31. Yeah, it says, Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways, for the forward is an abomination to the Lord, but the secret is with the righteous.
Oh, man. Read that one more time.
This is Proverbs chapter 3, verse 31. It says, Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways, for the forward is an abomination to the Lord, but it's secret is with the righteous.
Yeah, see, all the ancient that can teach us what the scripture said were killed. They were killed off, bro. You know, everybody that had a strong will was killed, was murdered. Not only in the west coast of Africa, at those facilities that they was being held at to the ships to come back, but on the way here, everybody that had some type of strong will was killed in front of everybody.
Yep.
To break the minds of the people, you know. Oh, this man is strong will. He'll influence others. We have to make an example out of him.
Yep.
And you know, they threw them over the boat, over the edge of the boat. You know, they were not only were they throwing people to the sharks, but they were beating people, and they would take buckets and wash the blood of the people that were getting beat on the boat into the water. So there was a trail of sharks following the boat.
Yep.
You know, and then everybody that was they oh, this guy he think he's tough. We need to make an example out of him. So the others, you know, so the others will be scared. So you know, like it's always them either pitting each other or making certain examples of us, you know, or choose or putting a wicked example up over us. You know, the church, that's a wicked example. You know. Now you should be able to put two and two together. The scripture said his feet was like brass burned in the furnace, and what color was his face? But then you go into a church and there's white Jesus in there. It don't fucking mix.
Nope.
Niggas don't want to put that together. Why? Because they transgress the Lord. They transgress the Lord according to what? Why do you? Because of their traditions. Churches are tradition. Oh, my grandma went to church. My grandfather went to church. My daddy went to church. I'm going to church. So you transgress the laws of God according to you're blinded by this deception because of your traditions. You know, and your traditions are wicked, man.
Yep.
You know, but we can go back into the article.
I had a couple of things too, just to back both of you and run you up. When you said that they, hate to see us together, that togetherness, it was J. Edgar Hoover who said the number one problem for the United States is Negro unity. He's coined a saying that, and then on the back of that, he said that if the so-called Negro will have a Messiah, we will give it to him. Okay, that's how they sowed discord. And when you to back you up, you remember what you were saying earlier, which also ties in what you were saying. They used many devices to destroy that unity. You talked about some of the things, you remember, but one of the most important things was in the 80s putting those drugs in our neighborhoods. Okay, you have what bitch Nancy Reagan saying just say no when her husband was working with Oliver North and the CIA putting those drugs in our communities. Okay, and it didn't stop there. You know, here comes Clinton right after that, and Biden with that 3 strikes rule. Okay, and it was retroactive, so it wasn't 3 strikes from the point that law passed. If you already had an offense that was classified under that 3 strikes law, they counted that too. So if you already had 2, all you needed was 1 more, okay, to lock you up forever. That's just how they did against Jay. So it was I'd say masterful lightly, but it's a very complicated, intricate system that has worked well in destroying the majority of Jay. Okay, but some of us have to stay out of that. And you always like to bring this out, that scripture about sowing discord.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah. So just real quick to your point, and this actually goes back to what something Amawan had mentioned when he talked about Esau, Edom, being adverse to the ways of the Heavenly Father. So everything in which they do is going to be completely adverse. It's going to be contrary. It's going to be against the ways in which the Lord pushed.
Come.
So I got this in Psalms, and I'll bring that other one. This is Psalms 133. It says, "Behold, how good," verse 1, "Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity."
Come.
So that's something pleasant for the men and this is what's happening now, even as we speak. Men coming together, in unity, and not having that envious spirit, the devilish spirit, but they coming together under the unity of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and that's what they fear.
Yep.
Now, to your point, because Proverbs chapter 6, 16 through 19 talks about the 7 abominations that the Lord hates. And the one that you just referenced is verse 19. He says, "A false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among brethren." So not only have they destroyed our communities, then they had to infiltrate, sabotage, seduce, the mindset of the people. Men against the women is what you have in these latter times. That's heavy, men against the women, younger against the old, and then the elder pretty much was going into, the first thing come to mind was the Willie Lynch letter. When you read that, that's, you take the big brute beat, of them all, and you beat him down so all before all, so that they could become more weaker, and again, we won't come out of this condition, and this is what we understand, until Yahweh Shai returns, our Redeemer, and put things back in its rightful order.
Absolutely.
All right.
Man, beautiful.
Back to the article. It says a community of over 900 people is self-sustaining with its own businesses, churches, and a fire department, school, and even a trolley stop. However, it lacked much of the city infrastructure common in white neighborhoods at the time, like sidewalks and running water. And another point I'd like to add here, Apostle Tahara talks about all the time, we didn't have our own police.
Or military.
Military like these other nations do. All right. It says the village thrived for over 40 years until the federal government decided to use eminent domain, allowing the government to seize private property for public use to take the area for its new defense headquarters. Residents were given 2 weeks to vacate, and the town was razed almost overnight.
Precept.
Owners received $2,052 in compensation. Renters got nothing. And here's a point to note here. They said it seemed to was raised overnight. This was a plan known well in advance, until they got it moved through. Because I will tell you this: in order to construct a building, that's at least a 5-year process, especially something of this magnitude, where you have to look at how to get utilities there, okay, how it's going to lay down, what the composition of the land is. You got to do all that stuff. Phase 1, phase 2, geotechnical investigations, also called soil borings. Okay, can the existing land there withstand the weight of that new facility? And we know that thing is real big. It's got all kind of concrete in it. So when that, whatever say that hit it in 9/11 didn't do that much damage to it, that building is solid. Okay, so a whole lot had to go into that. So it didn't just raise overnight. This was a long range plan.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but hey, that's brother knows. And another thing, they probably had a lot of that building already prefabricated.
Yeah.
For they, it's like when you prefab a building, it's like puzzle pieces. All you gotta do is just bring them in and put them together, snap everything together in the right place, bolt everything down. Because like that, that's they already had the schematics and blueprint and everything written already up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pentagon.
That's why
5 sides.
That's why that Micah 2 said they covet fields, then take them by violence.
Yep.
Because they coveted it, they long time coveted it. Oh yeah, we're gonna take this land. You know what? This is the what we envision for this land in the future. And then people live on this land. Oh, they're dogs. They're not. These are no people. The Constitution doesn't say qualify them as people.
God.
You know. So who cares about them?
Yep.
You know, who cares about the hard work, sweat, and tears that went into them building their neighborhoods? We're gonna take it. You know. That's what happened.
And we talked about those patterns. We talked about those patterns, and those patterns, as far as the natives in Oklahoma, I think also in Georgia, when they actually had gave them a certain plot of land in Oklahoma. I forget the name of the city. I was looking it up, but we did a violence against our brother Jacob over it. When they pushed them into this place, they found that they can grow cotton there. Then they was like, we need that, so they went and took it, and pushed them out of that area. There was another place, I think it was in Georgia, where they was like, there's like oil here, so they pushed them out of that area. So that was kind of that was the theme. It was like they wrote these treaties and they set these contracts like, this is your land, this is your area, and then they found it's like, there's cotton flourishes in this area, and then they was like, we gotta have it. So then they went and they started settling and just started taking it, going back to that coveting fields. They did it with the natives. Then they started doing these things with the so-called blacks. Not to jump off too far off topic, we always bring it up, these deportations of the natives and how it's been the natives, when we say the natives, but the Latinos, right? So-called.
Yeah.
But that's going to transition over to so-called blacks. That's been part of a pattern that we've noticed with these violence against our brother Jacobs.
Yeah,
So
if I recall correctly, I think that was around the time of the Trail of Tears.
yeah, it was.
The Indian Removal Act around the 1830s.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So you said 1830
yeah.
in 1942. This is what's happening.
Yep.
To so-called blacks.
So it never stopped. Same playbook.
Right.
Same playbook.
Got it.
All right. Back into the article. It says the city put residents in a trailer camp where many stayed for years.
Bro, you had a precept. Didn't you?
Slacky.
This is Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1. It says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees, and that right grievousness which they have prescribed. Prescribed pretty much meaning what's right before. Before scribe means right. And dealing with the eminent domain, which allows the government to seize private property for public use. Hey, really, man, that's fucking wicked.
Yep.
You see, because here it is, these people, they've established themselves on said land, right? But because the government sees them thriving and in their heads, they see that they can do X, Y, and Z with their land. In their minds, they're justified in taking it. Verse 2, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey and that they may rob the fatherless. And see, what we're reading about right here is nothing but a case of robbery. All right, the scriptures going to how Yahweh he himself said what? That the thief cometh not but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. You see? And that's all Esau, Edom, so-called white man has committed towards the children of Israel.
That's something back you up.
Hey, what other?
Okay,
did
you
you have
read that part
another side by side? Did you have like an NET or
NLT?
Yeah.
NLT?
NLT?
Yeah, barbecue shot. Just we want to read the NLT. I know brothers got scriptures.
No.
This is Isaiah chapter 10, verse 1 in the NLT. It says, what sorrow awaits the unjust judges and those who issue unfair laws.
Issue unfair laws. Eminent domain. Go ahead.
It says they deprive the poor of justice and deny the rights of the needy among my people.
Yeah, they'll make a law and then they'll break the law that they made, and then they'll have a clause in the law. Well, this doesn't apply to you because you're 3/5 of a human being. You're not even a whole human being. So none of these laws apply to you. And then but then they'll arrest you by the same law that they say doesn't apply to you. They'll throw you in jail. Because the oppression of the law applies to you. But the right of the law doesn't apply to you.
Yep.
The good parts of the laws that have been to benefit The citizens don't apply to you, but the law that's meant to punish you applies. Yeah, go ahead.
That's a good one. Real quick, that's very good. We were just talking about that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will go into that. Yep.
Yeah, God.
Like, oh, slide.
No,
No. We was on the porch right before you pulled up talking
Yeah,
about that.
that's the spirit. It's the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verse 22 and 23. It says, "Rob not the poor because he is poor, neither oppress the afflicted in the gate. For the Lord will plead their cause and spoil the souls of those that spoiled them." So that just to back up what you were going into. You know, you've robbed and you've done all these things like the brother brought out Yeremia. You know, injuries, riches, and gotten by deceit. You know, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Well, this is the information that's coming out,
The receipts.
the receipts that are coming out from the prophets that are crying out, asking for the Lord to plead our cause. You know, and not only for ourselves, but the whole nation of Israel. Well, initially it's going to be the elect, and eventually all Israel will be saved. You know, and under that banner of all righteousness. Yeah.
I was saying we were just discussing that on the porch. You know, you said the law don't apply because we three-fifths of the person. We were going into the preamble, you know, of the Constitution on the porch. And the next to the last sentence says, "to ourselves and our posterity." When you go into that word posterity, it deals with the progenitor of a nation to all future generations of said progenitor. Okay? That document was signed September 1787. Where was Jake at that time? We were slaves. So it doesn't apply to us. And then they come back and try to say, oh, the 14th Amendment. Well, we know that the national oath of police officers is to the Constitution and the first 10 amendments, which is called the Bill of Rights. Okay? So anything past that 10th Amendment, they don't have to observe it, which they don't. Okay? That 14th Amendment is really taxation without representation. You know, we pay you for so-called services, but we don't never get them. So-called services and so-called benefits, but you take our money for them. All right? And what you were saying too, on one about that second part of Isaiah, was it 10 and 2? Can you read that again?
It says, Isaiah 10 and 2, "to turn aside the needy from judgment, and to take away the right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless."
Yeah, the widows may be their prey, and they may rob the fatherless. What's that telling you? The man is not in the home, either forced out or they destroyed the man. Okay.
They call that out of the house rule,
Yeah, out of the
which
house
was
rule.
another thing that was set up
Yep.
to get Jake out of the house.
Yep.
Man,
Jake
we
Man.
gotta
Jake Man.
finish that article too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yo, that's the
Bro.
paragraph. Yep.
Bro,
That's
like
a lot.
I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, this shit is fucked up. No, these last couple of paragraphs gonna really get into how wicked this fucking devil, man. And then people get mad at us for hating these fucking devils, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is fucking how wicked this man is. This is the shit he's done, and we don't have to forgive him.
No.
We don't fucking have to forgive him, because what has he done to justify the wickedness that he's done to our people? Not a goddamn thing. And you niggas want to be nice and fucking coddle this goddamn devil, man.
Yeah.
When you should be, man, like, bro, like, I'm telling you, man, like, he got a lot of you niggas are his pets. Pappy's little monkeys. You want every time we get on this fucking devil, niggas want to come to his rescue. But you see the wickedness that he's done.
Yep.
You see the evil that he's fucking done to us. It's not fucking okay. You know? He gotta fucking pay for that.
Yep.
You know? The Lord ain't with that. The Lord is a judge, and what judge lets shit go? Like the amount of wickedness he's done, he's supposed to get let go, and the Lord is a judge? No, he's gonna get fucking judged.
Right.
Wasn't we lynched on trees? Wasn't we judged according to Deuteronomy 28 chapter?
Yep.
So he gotta get fucking judged.
Yep.
You know? Go ahead, let's go, bro. That shit, man, that shit just made me mad, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, quick one.
Yeah.
Oh, Y'all can get back to the article that's come out.
Yeah, but and just to your point right quick, Elder, we don't have to give him. You know, Acts 5:30 says repentance and forgiveness of sin is only for Israel. That's what Yahweh said. Okay, that's what he came for. So we don't exceed what he does. All right. These last two paragraphs. It says the city put the residents in a trailer camp where many stayed for years.
Yeah, you got a 4 and 5 bedroom house. You got plenty of space for your family. And then you get put in you get your house taken and bulldozed over. And you get put in a fucking trailer camp, bro. Go ahead, bro.
It says William Volan, one of the town's residents, told the Guardian, "We were left devastated, had no place to go. I went from one trailer camp to another trailer camp in filthy conditions."
In filthy conditions. Our people are not no filthy dogs like you fucking devils. Like you heathens, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know? You may not be the cleanest person on the planet, but you're cleaner than them. You know? Here it is, you done worked your ass off, your life away. Busted bone and knuckle. And put your body through all kind of rigorous hell to buy a home, and then some fucking devil, some devil, man, just can come take your shit away. And then after that, we supposed to fucking smile at you fucking devils and say, it's okay, Pappy. You cool. And I'm here to tell you, you're not cool, man. You're not cool, man. Man, and that's why the Lord said all these things that you've done will come on you double. You brought it on yourself. Let's go, bro.
This is the last paragraph. It says, recently, a new public art installation, Queen City, by artist Nikisha Durrett, was erected to pay tribute to the vanished black neighborhood.
Yeah, and then what did that do for the harm that you've done? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, let us show you niggas out here with nothing. That's insult to injury.
Yep.
Well, we'll show like when you had shit, or what the neighborhood used to look like before we bulldozed it over, as a memorial that we can do what the fuck we want. That ain't helping nobody, bro. That's not helping. You bulldozed my shit over, and then years later, because she probably was a Jake, because people that do shit like that be looking like Edomites, but they be Jakes. Mm-hmm. Well, let's erect an art institute for these people and for what happened. She could have been a Jake. But the thing is that don't fucking help nothing. That just opens a wound that was closed years ago.
Yeah,
but it's
she's a Jake.
Yep. See, she's a Jake. Some Jake woman. Opens up an art museum, but like the thing is, okay. That's all she can do to say, oh, look, no, this was a community. And I understand why she did it. Because people come over to this country and say, why don't you niggas have nothing? Why don't you have nothing? And we don't have nothing because all of our heritages were taken away. Mm-hmm. Our families worked their ass off to gain shit, and this is what happens. Mm-hmm. Eminent domain. They come in and take your shit and put you in a filthy fucking box, bro. And demoralize you to the point where you're like, why should I have to start over now? I had everything I needed. Now you mean to tell me I got to work my ass off another 10, 15 years? To get another house? They didn't say, well, look, we're going to pay you the value of the home that you lost. No, they put them in a fucking box, bro. And a lot of us don't have heritage to this day because of shit like this. Mm-hmm. A lot of us should have family homes. We should have family. You know? You know? But we ain't got shit because every time we had shit, this fucking hunky, this devil comes and does shit like this. And then the people that work their ass off for a lifetime to buy this home and build it and buy and hack the materials away and you know and put this home together, you come and bulldoze it over and put them in a fucking trailer, bro. Can you imagine how demoralizing that is? Can you imagine how fucked up the minds of those people were when they shit was taken away? You feel like, hey, Shalom, you feel like you can't win, bro. You feel like, bro, like maybe I should just die. Maybe I should just fucking go in the grave, bro. Because, like, man, like, get over it. But to consider, to put yourself in that man's mind, he worked, he's happy to see his family running around the yard. They probably lived in a fucking shanty before they had these homes. And then they finally able to move their family into a nice home. And then years down the line, that homes gets taken. Now you gotta fucking ride past or go past where your home used to be and be mad, reminded of the anger every fucking day for the rest of your life of what these people did to you.
They took this land America and then they gave you Thanksgiving.
Man, bro.
Yeah.
Man, that's so fucked up, bro.
Yeah.
So the natives, think of the ones who were here first, who had this land, and then give you a Trump of false story. How it all came together. They had agreements and there was love, and somehow the Indians died off. And now you have this place being ran by Edomites, talking about make America great again, and kicking the very people out of the land.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just
yeah. You brought up a very good point. Though you got to think about this. That residence or that community lasted 40 years. 40 years, but they only had 2 weeks to move. Do you know how much stuff you can accumulate in 40 years? And have to move it all out in 2 weeks.
And then you have to toss a lot of your shit away because it ain't gonna fit in this little fucking box they're gonna put you in.
And I'm sure you didn't have the moving services like you have today.
And you know what? When they zoned that property off and told the people they couldn't go in, they probably stole all their shit.
Yeah.
Everything, the couches, the pianos, the kids' toys, and probably took them home to their kids. Cause they're not gonna throw that. Jake like nice shit, bro. When Jake get on his shit, man, and start getting money, they don't buy cheap shit. They buy nice shit, bro. Cause so you imagine, nice, four-legged couch, wooden couches with cushion and, nice furniture, fucking curio cabinets, grandfather clocks, pieces of clothes, jewelry. Them bringing dolls home to their kids. Like, look what I got you. Your family shit being taken while you sitting in the box. Can you imagine how demoralizing that is? And then this fucking devil, this fucking hunky, man. You got the nerve to tell people that come in this country, niggas are lazy. Don't mess with black people. They're lazy. There's a huge difference between lazy and tired. Every time we try to build something over the years, it got burned down or bombed. So people don't care about owning shit no more because they know it can be taken away. Hey, when I was in America before I went to the war, all I cared about was money. But when I was in the war, I didn't care about a dime of money because I could have died the next day. If you got a house and your house gets taken and you worked all your life to build it, You're not gonna really care about buying another house because you know it could be taken too.
Right.
You know.
Elder, you brought up a good point. You said zoned off
Mm-hmm.
from obtaining their belongings.
Mm-hmm.
That was another process that I didn't mention earlier when I talked about everything that had to go into that. That area had to be rezoned too. You just can't go take something of commercial status and build it on something that's zoned residential.
Mm-hmm.
So that was indeed a process. They knew what they were going to do
Yep.
long ahead of time, and it takes once they see the layout, because you have to have a plan to take that into the city or whatever governing authority has over rezoning that process, and you have to sell that to them. That's not a overnight process. Okay, they got to see how this thing is going to be laid out, and best believe they had it laid out for a long period of time. So they had to rezone that area. You just can't go in and put something commercial down, even in your own subdivision. Certain stuff you can't do.
Right.
You know, you just can't do it. They tell you can't have no businesses out running out of your house. Okay, because that's a business that would be considered under a business district when it's residential. So it's a long range process. That's all I have. You have something wrong? Go ahead.
Yep. This is
Yeah. Okay, what else?
Are you good?
I'm looking at you.
Mhm.
Unless you guys.
This is the book of Psalms chapter. It's like this is the book of Psalms chapter 73 and verse 6. It says, "Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain."
From Psalm 5.
Psalm chapter 73 and verse 5. It says, "They are not in trouble as other men, neither are they plagued like other men." Yep.
No.
Yep, because Esau, has that power on the left hand side. He's not gonna be played like how Jacob is played here on this side, man. This double can do whatever the hell he wants and get away with it scot free.
Good.
Yep.
That's Job 9:24 because it's in his hands.
Mm-hmm.
It says, verse 6, it says, "Therefore pride compasseth them about as a chain, violence covered them as a garment." And these devils are puffed up with pride, man. Okay, because they believe in their mind, "Oh, we done took down the Israelites, we done took their land. Who can stop me now? I'm the baddest one on I'm the biggest, baddest one on the face of the earth. I put the Lord's people in captivity. I don't took all their riches. It says violence covered them as a garment. Because Esau he puts on violence, man. All right. The same reason, the same way how he was able to obtain, this land, the same way he's able to go in and write these wicked laws, man. All right, these unrighteous decrees, man. All right, it's all to inflict violence on the nation of Israel, man. All right, it's verse 7. It says, "Their eyes stand out with fatness; they have more than heart could wish." That's right, because Esau Edom he's insatiable. He'll never be satisfied, man. This is the most covetous man upon the face of the earth, man. Which is why he's always waging war. He's always trying to invade these other countries and steal their land, steal their resources. Fuel, precious minerals in the earth. He wants to heap all that unto himself, man. All right. It says, verse 8. It says, "They are corrupt and speak wickedly concerning oppression. They speak loftily." Yep. Yeah, they're puffed up with pride, man. All right. They speak loftily, man. It said what they speak wickedly concerning oppression. All right. They don't everything that this man does, you know, he believes in his mind that he's doing something right. So you speak out against him, you call him out on his wickedness. All right, he just he pretty much speaks lawfully. He speaks pridefully, man. Okay, because he believes in his mind that he can't be taken out of his power seat.
Yeah.
So he's pretty much looking at all these other nations that's trying to come up against him, like what are you gonna do to me? You know, I'm the most powerful man on the face of the earth right now. You know, but ultimately, Yahweh Bashim Ashai is gonna humble this man. Ultimately, man. All right,
Yeah.
destroy his whole power structure, man.
Because Yahweh Shai, tells us in Thessalonians, only he who letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. So, this is the whooping stick, the sword of the Lord, the Heavenly Father. Yahweh Shai has used him to be the whooping stick and put us in, our punishment, our captivity. But he has a bound that he cannot pass, and we're coming to the end of that time, and we're getting closer and closer to where the tides will change. The seasons, everything. Yahweh Shai is gonna put things back in its righteous order, and he's gonna get his complete punishment, for all the things in which he's done unto his people. Like I said, whether it be to one man or to a nation, they're gonna all receive their judgment. Did you have more? Yeah, I got something real quick. Okay, Kai.
Man, beautiful points, brothers.
Yes.
By the way, yeah.
This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, beginning in verse 43. It says, "A stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." So also we understand that the Heavenly Father Yahweh has raised up the horn of our adversary, main adversary being Esau, even the so-called white man, ultimately due to our disobedience. You see, verse 44, it says, "He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." And that's why when we read stories like this, like in today's lesson, Queen City, and what happened in the 1920s back in Harlem, Jake was thriving, but ultimately it never lasted long, because at the end of the day, it goes back to the curses. You see, all these things that have come upon us is due to our disobedience, against Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. See, so that's why under captivity, Jake is never really able to completely thrive. Okay, because on this side, in this kingdom, we're the tail, we're on the bottom.
All right, so with that, we hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, they're going to give all praises, glory, and honor to
Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Kakadash.
Double honors to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teaching us is 100% true. Salutations to them and our fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be like it to the speckled bird. To you say shalom.
Shalom.
Kwam Yasharala.
Kwam Yasharala.
Abba.
Abba.
We got next.